welcome you. Do we have any Zoom visitors today, Gabriel? No, none on Zoom. Okay, so this is not a hybrid service in the sanctuary here today of Summit Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Summit is a spiritual community deeply committed to the shared values of love and inclusion. We have no specific Unitarian dogma. However, we do aspire to the principles and purposes listed at the end of your order of service. The mission of Summit is to commit ourselves to building a more compassionate, just, and sustainable world. Oh, you know what? Casey just told me I'm supposed to read the centering thought. Okay, let's pretend I did that first. Okay, let's pretend it's already been done. We have to, okay, and so now we have music. Hi, Karen.
This morning I'm going to play Joshua Fit the Battle of Jericho and the Walls Came Tumbling Down, which was a great song of the Civil Rights era, arranged by Mark Hayes.
Wonderful beginning. So how about you read the centering thought with me? I believe firmly that to practice love is to disrupt the status quo, which is masquerading as peace. Well done. Okay, so we have announcements. Our first announcement is from KC, and then we have two more after that.
Good morning, folks. Good morning. I just want to remind you that as part of the Unitarian Universalist Association, this congregation is part of the Pacific Western Region, and our Pacific Western Region Regional Assembly is coming up in April, the 19th and 20th of April. It is going to be hybrid in Denver and from your home. So this is your opportunity to connect with other UUs in the PSW region on the 19th and 20th at First Universalist Church in Denver. The keynote address will feature a conversation by our new UUA president, Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt, and the new president of the United Church of Christ, Reverend Dr. Karen Georgia A. Thompson. For those who choose to attend in person, there will be food, fun, and workshops. Again, you can attend online. I will be attending online, but you can be assured it's going to be a really great time. I'm very, very excited about all of the opportunities for connection that we have, and especially that conversation between Reverend Doctors Sophia and Karen. The registration link is going to be in the email and in the scene at the summit, so have a look out for those.
Okay, now Mark Weedman's coming on up.
Good morning. Friday night in the salon, we're going to have a potluck with music. Everybody's invited from 6 to 8 p.m. And the musical guest is Peter Bolin. And many of us have heard Peter speak in the pulpit, but he also is an excellent musician. So if you have more questions, you can see me anytime after service. And if you'd like to sign up to bring a dish, let me know. Thanks.
Okay, and now we have Dan coming up.
Good morning. The shelter pitch man. I'm back. The shelter, as you know, is coming. We continue to work toward that March 9th to March 23rd, for those of you that didn't know that. Just some stats. We have 71% of the 196 slots that we have identified that need to be filled to support the shelter have been filled. That's awesome. And to break that down a little bit for you, that's 40 to 50, I don't remember the exact number, individuals in the congregation who are supporting the 150 that we've filled so far. So many people doing multiple things. I don't know what 40 or 50 people in this congregation is as a percentage of the overall membership, but it's a lot. Yeah. I mean, to see that in any other congregation where you have 50% of the membership pulling together for a cause like that is pretty amazing, I think. So thank you very much for that. Some specific needs. On Sunday, March 10th, Thursday, March 14th, Monday, March 18th, and Tuesday, March 19th. So March 10th, 14th, 18th, and 19th, we still don't have anybody doing overnight positions in the shelter. So there's a specific need there, although the percentages of overall volunteership are higher. We do have a specific need in that area, as well as on Saturday, March 16th, we need a couple of people to spend a few hours in the morning putting out breakfast, making sack lunches available for the guests, and cleaning up. So that typically is from like 6 a.m. to 8 a.m., a couple hours in the morning for the breakfast crew. Those positional needs will be reflected on the big board in the salon, where I will be after the service to sign folks up if you still want to volunteer. There are also flyers in the back in the greeting area. All you need to do is pick one of those up and scan the QR code, and you can see what's available and sign up. And thank everybody again for your support of this. We appreciate it greatly.
Half of us, that's pretty impressive, isn't it? Okay, it's time for the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land upon which we reside is unceded and part of the long legacy of the Kumeyaay people. The spiritual traditions and enduring sovereignty of the Kumeyaay are the first that we acknowledge from this land, and we honor the continuing presence of the Kumeyaay Nation. And now we'll be having a testimonial from Serafina. Serafina, you want to come on up? I will.
Good morning. So, I will tell you the truth. When I first attended Summit services in the winter of 2018, I was looking for new friends more than a spiritual home. Several friendships had ended due to changes I'd made, and I was in the market. But my problem was shyness coupled with the sense of not belonging. Looking back now, I realize I did need a new beginning, but was unaware of how I was being guided. And although there were other supportive factors at work in my life, Summit was and is the catalyst for my new beginning. And that chemistry came in the forms of encouragement, opportunities, and expectations. Encouragement began with Reverend Frank's Meet with the Minister session when no one else showed up, and he stayed to chat anyway. He reviewed the whole of Summit's history, which was truthful, authentic, and encouraged me to trust both him and the place. Also, Frank recognized my distress and invited me for pastoral care, which was helpful. I felt very seen. Then, morning conversations group with Reverend Everett and the support from Everett when the loss of my dear friend Dennis Reimer caused me to cry openly while he and the group bore witness to my grief. Then Everett said the most beautiful prayer. This was a healing experience for me. Opportunities. Opportunities started with an invitation to usher, then the hospitality table, a covenant group, Reverend Frank's book study, but much of my volunteering has been behind the scenes with prep for the interfaith shelter in 2019, which was canceled due to the pandemic, and then the invitation to fill a board vacancy in 2021. But then, in September of 2022, a monthly theme was belonging, and that touched my heart. So I joined the lay-led service focused on that concept, and preparing that talk focused my thinking. Presenting my truth encouraged me to reach out, and being part of a Sunday service whetted my interest in services. So I joined the Sunday service committee, and when the chairperson relocated out of state, Carol Schnaubelt and I teamed up to co-chair the committee. As months went without a minister presented the need for more organization and oversight, the board created the Sunday service coordinator job, which I applied for. And that position offered the opportunity to work with a fabulous group of people, use my organizational skills, be part of a productive team, and work with our pastor, KC, as she began her ministry with us. Expectations. All of these involvements carried expectations to come out of the shyness, to be the best I can, to give the skills that I have, to learn the skills I need, and to relate to others as they are, instead of how I might wish them to be. In other words, to relate with others using our UU principles. These are the things I've learned and the things I've given. And since my new beginning with Summit, I've become a better person. I've deepened my spiritual commitment and feel a true sense of belonging here. My home at Summit has been a new beginning and will continue to be again and again. Thank you.
For our chalice lighting, Casey picked a wonderful reading that actually takes a word that's been used in the media and become a pejorative and turns it around, so I think you're going to like this reading. Let Us Wake Up by Christian Smith. Let us wake up, not just from the Sunday morning exhaustion, from the wish for a few more drowsy minutes in bed. Let us wake up to this world we live in, to its beauty and wonder, and also to its tragedy and pain. We must wake up to this reality that not all in our world have what we do, however much or little that is. We must wake up to the idea that our wholeness, our lives, are only as complete as the lives of those around us, of those we are inextricably tied to in a great web of mutuality, of which all of us are part. We must stay woke. In the words of our friends and colleagues involved in Black Lives Matter, working every day for racial justice in our country. Let us wake up, let us stay awake, let us stay woke. And now, in this time and place, let us worship together. Please stand if you are able for the UU hymn and aspiration. Thank you. Please be seated.
Oh, aspiration.
Oh my God. Please don't be seated. I'm a little rusty on this. I haven't done it for about 3 months. Okay. Let's begin our aspiration. May love be the spirit of our fellowship. May the quest for truth be our sacrament, and service be our prayer. To all together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, and to help one another in our. This is our aspiration. Now, please be seated.
Good morning again. It's so nice to see such a full house today, my goodness. My name is Casey Marie Pandell. I am the minister here at Summit. Whether it is your first visit or your 5,000th visit, you are whole, you are holy, you are loved, and you are so welcome here. Our reading this morning are words from Jackie James from the incredible book Been in the Storm So Long, entitled Day and Light. Black male, black list, black mark, black Monday, black mood, black-hearted, black plague, black mass, black market. Good guys wear white. Bad guys wear black. We fear black cats and the dark continent. But it's okay to tell a white lie. Lily white hands are coveted. It is great to be pure as the driven snow. Angels and brides wear white. Devil's food cake is chocolate. Angel's food cake is white. We shape language and we are shaped by language. In our culture, white is esteemed. It is heavenly, sun-like, clean, pure, immaculate, innocent, and beautiful. At the same time, black is evil, wicked, gloomy, depressing, angry, and sullen. Ascribing negative and positive values to black and white enhances the institutionalization of our culture's racism. Let us acknowledge the negative connotations to whiteness. White things can be soft, vulnerable, pallid, ashen. Light can be blinding, bleaching, enervating. Conversely, we must acknowledge that darkness has a redemptive character and that in darkness there is also power and beauty. The dark nurtured and protected us before birth. Welcome darkness. Don't be afraid of it or deny it. Darkness brings relief from the blinding sun, from scorching heat, from exhausting labor. Night signals permission to rest, to be with our loved ones, to conceive new life, to search our hearts, and to remember our dreams. The dark of winter is a time of hibernation. Seeds grow in the dark and fertile soil. The words black and dark don't need to be destroyed or ignored, only balanced and reclaimed in their wholeness. The words white and light don't need to be destroyed or ignored, only balanced and claimed in their wholeness. Imagine a world that had only light or only dark. We need both. Dark and light, light and dark. Welcome to worship. Please rise in mind, body, or spirit as we sing hymn 169 in your gray hymnal entitled, "We Shall Overcome." And now is the time that we share our joys and concerns together as a community. Joys and concerns may be emailed or texted to me throughout the week, or can be handwritten near the chancel on Sunday mornings. Whether you choose to have your joy or concern spoken or not, you are always welcome to light a candle as you are so moved. I have a concern today from Jim Weed, who shares that his friend Sarah, whom he met while working at Costco, has entered hospice care for liver cancer. He enjoyed a visit with her earlier this week and is pleased to see that she is well supported by friends and family. It's a situation that is close to Jim's heart, so we hold Sarah and Jim in our hearts and thoughts. And we know that there are more joys and concerns in this room and at home on Zoom than have been shared aloud today. Whether spoken or unspoken, we hold you tenderly in our hearts. And I would like to invite our young and our young at heart up to the pulpit for the reading of our Time for All Ages. We're going to see if I can figure out how to use the clicker today. Our story this morning is titled The Undefeated by Kwame Alexander and illustrated by Kadir Nelson.
I don't think we have the slides. I don't think they got sent.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
This is for the unforgettable, the swift and sweet ones who hurdled history and opened a world of what's possible. The ones who survived America by any means necessary. And the ones who didn't. This is for the undeniable, the ones who scored with chains on one hand and faith in the other. This is for the unflappable, the sophisticated ones who box adversity and tackle vision. For those who shine their light for the world to see and don't stop till the break of dawn. This is for the unafraid, the audacious ones who carried the red, white, and weary blues on the battlefield to save an imperfect union. The righteous marching ones who sang, "We shall not be moved because Black lives matter." This is for the unspeakable. This is for the unspeakable. This is for the unspeakable. This is for the unlimited, unstoppable ones, the dreamers, the doers who swim across the big sea of our imagination and show us the majestic shores of the promised land. The Wilma Rudolphs, the Muhammad Alis, the Althea Gibsons, the Jesse Owenses, the Jordans and the LeBrons, the Serenas and the Cheryls, the Reese Whitleys, and the undiscovered. This is for the unbelievable, the wee real cool ones. This is for the unbending, the black as the night is beautiful ones. This is for the undefeated. And this is for you, and you, and you, and this is for us. The end. Do the young ones want to help us with the you song that I don't know off the top of my head yet? The hearts and minds and... Do we know it? All right, so let's do it, because Casey doesn't know it yet. We are Unitarian Universalists. Helping hands. And thank you all. And our children's recessional sung to the tune of Do Re Mi, and our children are excused to their classes. Clearly, I didn't grow up UU. Thanks, guys. And our next hymn today is very specific. If you were here last week, you heard our choir sing it, and I've chosen to do it again today. Your gray hymnal has hymn 149, and it is a very important song. It is known as the Black National Anthem. So please rise as you are so moved or able to sing hymn 149 in our gray hymnals. Lift every voice and sing. Sing That one hits a little different when you know what it is, doesn't it? Please join me in a time of silent prayer, meditation, or reflection as we read words by Margaret Weiss entitled Prayer for Weary Times. O Holy One, our hearts are weary. We are tired and we are breaking. Our hearts are stretching as they are pulled and pushed, bruised and battered by all the suffering and brokenness and pain. Our ears are ringing with harsh words, with yelling, with gunfire that echoes in our streets and takes lives of innocents without cause. They're ringing with the affirmation that Black lives matter again and again until this idea is manifested in our legislation, our communities, and our hearts. We have heard stories of equality and justice, but our eyes burn from the instances of inequality, racism, and injustice that illustrate we are still far from where we hope to be. Our mouths speak words of hope, of courage, of truth, and at times we find that words do no justice. The brokenness feels far too big. Our bodies, our collective bodies, built for lifting one another up and built for holding each other in love, they are being used against one another as weapons, and the ammunition is hatred and fear. Spirit of life and love, in this time of dissonance, in this holy time of urgency to speak for those who cannot speak for themselves, help us find our voice. Help us to see beyond this brokenness to a time of healing and true community. Help us to remember that the only journey toward healing is the one that is paved through humility, acceptance of responsibility, and counteracting complacency. Ours is not a solitary journey, but one taken together, bolstered by deep listening and deeply rooted in love. May we find the strength needed for the journey here in this place and in all places where people gather for love, for humanity, and for justice. Amen. Most of the liberation theologies we have explored or will continue to explore for the remainder of our congregational year are going to have very recent roots in terms of historicity. You may recall that the main framework of liberation theology is generally regarded as Latin American liberation theology, going back to Vatican II and the 1970s. Black liberation theology is a little more complicated than Catholicism and serving the impoverished. And really, it's quite a bit more specific than that. Today is one of those days where some of us in this room might feel some discomfort. There is a lot about today's subject that is intrinsically tied to America's history of slavery and the continued oppression of Black minds and bodies by white people. And this is one of those times where some of us might feel activated. This is a painful part of our history as Americans, and it is difficult to look it in the face. So I encourage anyone who may feel any of these emotions to lean into your sacred curiosity and spend some time in reflective space with those feelings. And as always, my door is open if you need it. A very clear starting point of this particular theology goes back to the very beginnings of this country as it was colonized. We know full well that religion was one of the major catalysts for white settlers to come here, and as time went on, the commodity of enslaved people became more profitable. And the argument was made not just by white slave owners, but by the white clergy around them, that black bodies were meant for enslavement. It said so right in the Bible. Of course, what they're referring to are two particular and entirely out of context pieces. The first of which, the story of Ham and Canaan in the Hebrew Scriptures, formerly known as the Old Testament, where the assumption was made that black people were descendants of Canaan, the cursed son of Ham, who was subjected to being in servitude to his brothers for his father's transgressions. There is no biblical accounting for how the blackness of skin relates to this, but it appears to be the view extended to the 15th century and is the underpinnings of the transatlantic slave trade. Secondarily, a Pauline statement that enslaved people should be obedient to their masters on earth, completely disregarding the socio-political and historical context of the biblical period that would define slavery. These views were deeply held in the South and throughout the country, and even after the formal end of slavery, they can still be seen in the patterns of discrimination that followed, including Jim Crow laws, the ways that white clergy worked hand in hand alongside politicians to maintain the status quo, and even the ways in which the Ku Klux Klan considered themselves to be maintainers of a true Christian faith. The use of religion to justify the oppression and discrimination of black people is about American as apple pie is. Our first glimpses of liberation theology begin in the 1700s with Bishop Richard Allen, the first bishop of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, or AME Church, calling for an end to slavery in 1700. And he called for the appropriate treatment of black people and recognizing them as children of God. We see this theology in the stirrings of slave rebellions, with some arguing that a commitment to God included the necessity of violence against the oppressor. We hear it in the works of Maria Stewart, the first black woman to lecture on politics in public, when she used the teachings of Jesus to appeal to Bostonians in 1831 to make space for black people to participate more fully in public life. It was clear in the words of Ida B. Wells Barnett, who revealed on an international scale the horrors of American lynchings. She demanded loudly for greater rights for black Americans. We hear this theology in the words of radical clergyman and politician Henry McNeil Turner, who used the Bible to demand socio-political change, critiquing any Christian, white or black, who did not use their faith to seek a transformed society. This is only one facet of a larger picture, however, and it is erroneous to assume that all black Americans use Christianity as a call for justice. Indeed, there's a period of de-radicalization, if you will, where many black churches, instead of being outward, turn towards themselves, looking inward for expressions of spirituality. This is in part a response to the Great Migration from the end of slavery into the mid-20th century. And we won't see another truly radical expression of Christian faith as a means of justice for black people until the Civil Rights Movement, where we see two very clear distinctions of how faith can inform our work. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X both understood that their religious commitments were catalysts for the socio-political work they were called to do, though they played out in quite different ways. History has tried to pit MLK as the better of the two between himself and Malcolm X, and while that discussion is much too large to attend to today, There was no mistaking that King's nonviolent approach was widely preferred, in some ways, over X's feelings that violence was it was sometimes warranted. But what it really came down to were a few questions, posited by professor and theologian Anthony B. Pinn in his essay, Black Theology, in Liberation Theologies in the United States, an introduction. How does one remain true to the best of the Christian faith while embracing the anger generated by injustice? How does one maintain the optimism embedded in Christianity and consistently critique white supremacy in all its forms? How does one maintain the relevance of one's faith with a context of absurdity and racial strife? These are the questions that 3 generations of Black theologians have sought to answer, with early attempts by the National Committee of Negro Churchmen, later the National Committee of Black Churchmen, and the Black Economic Development Conference in the mid to late 1960s, both of which called for early versions of reparations from the white churches which benefited from the oppression of Black Americans. The move to early Black theology would be summed up, in Pinn's perspective, by a trifecta: anger at injustice, the importance of Black consciousness, and the demands of the Christian faith. And there were clear and deliberate focuses on race and racism in America in this theology. The NCBN made a statement of the following: Black theology is a theology of Black liberation, a theology of Blackness. It is the affirmation of Black humanity that emancipates Black people from white racism, thus providing authentic freedom for both white and Black people. They define the term as being inspired by both Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. Black as it pertained to the Black Power movement, and theology as it grew from the Black churches and the civil rights movement. We do not have Black theology without both King and X. Preeminent Black theologian James H. Cone would publish his own discussion on the subject in 1969 in a piece titled Black Theology and Black Power. And that would quickly be followed in 1970 by the first ever liberation theology text published in English, A Black Theology of Liberation. In it, he would express sentiments similar to Latin American liberation theology, that God is one with the oppressed. In this case, God is ontologically Black. In other words, the nature of God is such that one is the same as the nature of oppressed Black people. And additionally, Cone considers there to be no theological reality in which Jesus, as a revolutionary concerned with the destruction of injustice, can be white. For a white Jesus is so closely related to white supremacy culture that he, in turn, would then become an oppressor. Referring to the Christian scriptures, Pinn states, for Black theology, Jesus is found where people suffer, and his presence speaks to a divine demand for their liberation. Of course, this is complicated by many factors. Sure, it sounds clear-cut, I hope, but seldom are things so simple. Black theology recognizes that humans are fallible and considers it sinful for one to overestimate or underestimate their own humanity, as white supremacy culture and oppression are wont to affect whites and Blacks. Black theology, though, doesn't make much room for an orientation of spirituality, focusing instead on salvation as liberation, seeking a just society here, today, on earth, not the promise of something greater after death. Other theologians, such as J. Diotis Roberts, felt that reconciliation between white and Black folks was necessary in as much as liberation was. Cohn's own brother Cecil Cohn raised questions in response to Black theology, namely, what is Black about Black theology? And suggested that there was too much Eurocentricity woven into the fabric of his brother's work. Others still sought frameworks from traditional African practices, seeking a more authentic Blackness away from the formalities of the dominant culture and white supremacy. Further questions abound, with William Jones challenging Cohn's theology in his book, Is God a White Racist? A preamble to Black theology, asking how God could possibly be on the side of the oppressed if he continues to allow oppression and destruction of Black people at the betterment of white. As we move into the 80s and the 90s and later, we see a second wave of Black theologians mostly in line with Cohn, in no small part due to the fact that many of them studied under his tutelage. And though there have been shifts from the mostly Protestant-focused Christianity into other perspectives, such as Islam, humanism, and Afrocentrism, as ways that may help grow and change Black theology. The second and third waves have begun to lean more into religious pluralism and the diversity of religious commitment within Black communities. Modern Black theology has questioned who is Black enough, in that not all Black people share the same struggles. There are various socioeconomic positions at play. Is there space for LGBTQ Black people within the ontological Blackness of Black theology? Theologians such as Victor Anderson hope for a wider diversity of identity within the Blackness of this theology. And the conversation couldn't be complete without mentioning the things missing. It ignores pretty outright subjects beyond race, leaving questions of gender and class mostly unexamined from a theological location. In a theology that has given preference to the perspectives of Black men, its main focus has always been the oppressions that affect them most. Dr. Cornel West has brought up the need for class to enter the discussion as an important part of oppression. Author and Professor Stacey Floyd Thomas and others, such as Cohn's student Jacqueline Grant in 1979, raised issues of sexism. And by the 80s, a different type of ethics and theologies has begun to emerge. Womanism, which speaks to faith, sexuality, and environmentalism from the perspective of Black women. Don't worry, we'll hear more about that one in a few weeks. It's important to remember that liberation theology is based very deeply around the individual experience. And in this case, the history of racism and white supremacy and the continued pains of them are necessary components of not only why this theology exists, but how it continues to be done. In Pinn's perspective, it speaks to and from the vantage point of African American struggle for existence and advancement. And it is very concretely informed by the Black experience in the United States and abroad as the theology changes and grows globally. It uses scripture in its liberation work, but does not take literally the stories, nor do they see it as without human error. The critical examination of the stories and how they champion liberation are key. It engages the cultural lives of Black people through literature and arts and music and so forth, though it has notably left out modern popular culture, favoring spirituals and blues over the likes of rap, for example. It will require continued study of post-colonialism, postmodernism, and other methodologies of study to continue to diversify in a more pluralistic world. And it will need to expand outside the bounds of basic academia if it truly wants to grow and be changed, not just for Black Americans, but others in the Black diaspora as well. This theology initially was geared towards Black clergy and Black lay people, and there's something about the current study that misses that. In short, this theology of Black liberation, as I have spoken of it today, is indelibly American as any part of our history. Black theology is a direct response to the historical, social, political, and religious contexts of this country. And the reclamation of the Bible as a method of liberation instead of oppression is a necessary facet of the work of Black liberation as it pertains to a Christian nation, which we know we're not. A hard look at the truth of the Black experience in the United States is part of the work that needs to be done in order for the work of liberation to succeed, not in some far-off, distant possibility of some life in the hereafter, but to succeed today, right now, in the place that we inhabit together. So may it be, and amen.
Time for our offertory. If Summit is a valued community in your life, if you appreciate a minister who brings us challenging topics, please support us by making an offering today. Our Zoomers, well, I guess we don't have Zoomers, so I'm going to skip that one. We always acknowledge our committed pledgers. They help us keep our doors open. And now we will gratefully accept your generous donations during the musical interlude.
I'm going to play Here's One by, it's an American spiritual arranged by Mark Hayes.
rise in mind, body, or spirit as you are so moved to sing our closing hymn, 1017, in your teal hymnal, We Are Building a New Way. Just as a reminder, today we have our Pledge Drive Stewardship Luncheon, so we will not be having a community gathering in the sanctuary after service. Once we have completed our closing circle song, you'll be excused straight to the salon. My hope as we explore these liberation theologies, because you still have a few more coming this year, is that we can see ourselves reflected somehow in the struggle of each individual theology. In this case, while a white person can never truly understand the generational traumas inflicted by white supremacist societies on a black population in this country, and I would never propose to say, I get it. What I hope is that we gain an understanding of that which is unknown to us, an illumination of what underpins the work these theologies call us all to do. Because none of us is free until all of us is free. And the fight for liberation is the work of us all. Amen, shalom, salam, namaste, ashe, and blessed be. Go now in peace. May the light within you be a blessing to the world.
So our closing words, extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. It's time for our closing circle song.
enjoy community time in the salon. I'm going to ask that everyone try to head out towards the salon, please, so that we can get set up for the luncheon.